Las Vegas Discount.net's the best there is. Save up to 50% on your next Vegas trip. And travel, rental, shows, and tours. Find the deals you're looking for. Las Vegas Discount.net. Las Vegas Discount.net. If you're going to Vegas for deals that are the best, visit Las Vegas Discount.net.
Welcome to humanity. This is our one.
Whatever it takes, we got to say. Whatever it takes is what it took.
This is Brock Lesnar, and you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Yo, hi, this is Sugar Ray Leonard, and you listen to Fight Net Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to listen to Fight Net Radio.
Lee Harvey Oswald, what's your name? How am I supposed to know you?
This is Frank Shamrock. We're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Hi, this is Tia, the Knockout St. John. You're listening to Fight Net Radio, and there's no way I would ever touch Lee.
This is Chuck Jackson.
I am Stephen Bonner, and you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Dan Henderson, you're listening to Fight Net Radio.
Everybody, welcome to Fight Net Radio, where Lee's burning every bridge there is out there. All right.
Hi, this is Manny Pacquiao. I'll fight anybody on FightNetRadio.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fight Net Radio. It's Bobby the Bookie Day. Bobby Capucci joins us live from Las Vegas. How are you, Bobby?
I'm doing well, thanks, Lee. Yourself?
We were just talking about this. I'm trying to get by. I have bad shoulders, and I'm gonna compete in Worlds. And believe it or not, for those that know anything about BJJ, it's 6 months to Pan Ams, which means I've already got to start training for Pan Ams again.
Never stops.
I swear to God, it's like I was training for the Pan Ams when I first got into BJJ, and it's never... That was my first tournament. I literally walked onto the big mat the first time. Then I went to
go big.
Yeah, go big or go home, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an interesting thing. We were talking about it before we started. Everything I learned to need to kill a human, I learned pretty much in my first 6 months to a year. And now, if I run into somebody who's got actual Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, not even other martial arts, excluding Krav Maga guys, which I just wouldn't want to encounter any of those nitwits ever. That's just way too aggressive for mine. I don't even know what's up with that discipline.
Yeah, those guys don't mess around.
No, they don't.
Anything that Mossad is taking up, I'm probably trying to steer clear of.
I want to take it just to see how badass it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are using that stuff over there in Israel, and those guys are like, you know, as you well know, those Mossad guys are like on par with our best CIA agents. Those guys are that's serious business over there.
Yeah, that is serious. It's all striking with intent. But I digress. Yep. For all of you who listen, for those that actually care, it was ADCC weekend for all three of the grappling fans out there. And if you didn't see it, here's my plug. Go get Flow Grappling. What are you doing? Go back and watch ADCC. Like it was a who's who of who was on the mat. Did you finally get a chance to watch any of it?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it while I was doing some other stuff. But, man, I know Ryan was destroying people.
He was. I was actually, my biggest thing, this is way on an offshoot, but Xande Ribeiro did phenomenal for a 30, I want to say he's 38?
Yeah, he's a legend.
He is a legend, but he ran his division and then hit a brick wall when he got into the absolutes. But
yeah,
you know what? Winning your division at this point in your life, anybody above the age of 30 still competing with adults, with quote-unquote the adult category, you're a beast. You're just a beast.
There's no doubt about that.
There was a note this week. We'll talk MMA. We'll start it off with a little MMA. Mackenzie Dern, whom I'm in love with, because hot chicks who do BJJ are way cool in my universe. For those of you who don't know, Mackenzie Dern is literally the best female Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athlete out there. She is. How many are there? You probably can name 3 or 4, and that's about it. Mackenzie Dern is going to move up in weight, and she's going to try MMA again For those of you who don't know, she tried it once before, and it didn't go so spectacularly well for her. So she went back and beat everybody up at one of the IBJJF tournaments just to make sure everybody understood how much of a badass she was. And we talked about this on previous shows. I don't think that these girls, like, I don't care if it's judo or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there's striking involved in MMA, and everybody seems to forget about that.
Yeah, it's a whole different, it's a different sport. I mean, when you're in a jiu-jitsu competition and you're trying to sink a submission, you're not worrying about blows being rained down on top of you. You know that it's just a chess match, and you're looking for your transitions and looking to pass and maybe exploit a mistake by your opponent. Whereas in MMA, they can force those mistakes with those hammer fists, rattle you, and then, of course, if you're not as used to getting pummeled, you panic, and sometimes that's how you get exploited. Even the greatest jiu-jitsu guys in MMA, sometimes that happens to them.
Absolutely. Bellator has announced a handful of dates coming up. What is Bellator just happy with its niche, their little spike niche, and we're not going to drug test. We're basically filling Pride's role of whatever we put in the ring, go for it.
Well, I think they're trying to move a little bit more into the realm of competitor. I don't know if I would say serious competitor of UFC yet. They have a lot of money backing them, Viacom money, so they do have a lot of money. But it seems like they've been putting on, like you were saying with Pride, they've been putting on a lot of I like to say like legacy fights almost. Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen, and now that you brought up Bellator, it's funny you say that because there's a lot of talk that Chuck Liddell is talking about coming back, and he's really been piping off about Chael Sonnen, thinking that might be a great fight to him, get his feet back wet in the MMA cage. So if that takes place, obviously it would be in Bellator. I don't know what the interest is.
Chael Sonnen, the guy who just won a super fight at 80cc. That Chael Sonnen.
That Chael Sonnen, exactly. So, who knows what will happen with that? I mean, if it's on TV, obviously people are going to watch it. It's Chuck Liddell, old school MMA fans for sure. I don't really know about some of the newer school MMA fans. I mean, a lot of people you go onto message boards, and seems like a lot of people don't really even know who Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin were, never mind older than that. So it's kind of crazy to see how that would sell. I mean, obviously they'd put it on for free on Spike, but their last card that was on this weekend was a pretty good card, actually. I mean, some pretty good fights, some pretty interesting fights. I don't think I see it on level with UFC. I don't see people buying their pay-per-views. I mean, they'd have to stack it with someone like Fedor Emelianenko, even though he's losing. People are still going to buy a pay-per-view with something like that on it. But for the most part, Bellator, I think you're more or less correct. It's still a niche organization, as much as people who like that organization don't want to admit. They aren't putting on fights that are knocking anyone's socks off right now.
How are they not booking Fedor versus Chuck Liddell? That seems to me like the match.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Chuck would like to come in, and if he does fight a guy like Chael Sonnen, I think he's thinking that Chael really has nothing for him on the feet, and if he could stop the takedown, then he'll bust him out and then get a bigger fight if he can handle that. But I think you're right. I think that he'd be stupid to jump in there with anyone trying to get a warm-up fight. He should just go in there and go for the gusto against another legend like Fedor, who's been finished a couple times recently. And, why not? What the heck? People will definitely tune into that.
Get a payday. Big news in MMA. It appears that we are going to get Conor back in the octagon because he doesn't want to give up his belts. And who has Dana selected for him? What a surprise. Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor 3, set for St. Patrick's Day. Shocking choice.
Yeah. Well, they got to finish that legacy off. I mean, I know it's no good to the other guys at 155. We have a big 155 fight coming up with Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee on October 7th. And once that fight's over, I think whoever wins that fight is obviously the number one contender at 155. So after McGregor and Diaz finish off their trilogy and finish off this rubber match, we'll have probably, I'm guessing, McGregor against either Ferguson or Lee. And I'm still going back and forth on that fight. I mean, it's really good, but I'm leaning towards Ferguson because of his endurance and his scrappiness and his caginess, and Lee still being a bit young. But, man, Kevin Lee is very athletic and very very explosive and tough. So that's going to be a tough fight.
But Ferguson's the dog in this fight, right? He's minus – no, he's the favorite. He's minus Tony,
he's
2-1. He's a 2-1 favorite.
Yes, he definitely and that's right around the number I would make it at if I was making the number, like for the reasons I stated earlier. I still want to see what's going on a little bit more, towards the weigh-in. I really like to see all the way up to fight day, even sometimes to where I really fall onto a fight if I'm going back and forth, because you're watching tons of video, you're checking out clips, you're watching old fights, and you're battling in your head, oh man, Ferguson looks great here or Lee looks great here. So sometimes it takes a little longer to handicap a fight, and this one looks kind of like that to me. It's a very close fight. I have Ferguson as the favorite, but a 2-1 favorite in MMA isn't a huge favorite, and I think that it could even be a little closer, maybe even a -180, but it's right around the proper number in my opinion at this point.
While we're on the topic, should I wait and see how Johnson plays out next week? I know we're going to talk about it in greater detail when we go down the card next week, but Johnson and Borg, Demetrius is -1,200. I mean, he's literally a 12-1 favorite in this fight. Do you think the odds are going to improve on this thing at all?
No, I don't think there's going to be any movement on this fight. This is kind of stale. The market's kind of stale for it. With it being canceled one time already, there wasn't really much hype. Locally, gambling-wise, about that fight, and now with them scheduling it and coming back, and nobody's really too excited about it. People wanted the Dillashaw, Demetrius Johnson fight since Garbrandt's on the shelf, but he didn't want to take that fight. He wanted Borg, and so here we are. We're waiting for him to fight Borg, and you see the number. It's basically if that's the number in football, you're looking at Alabama versus UNLV.
Yeah,
so,
I completely agree.
You're gonna pay pay-per-view to watch Alabama UNLV. Thankfully, there's other great fights, on
They're
the card.
great. Well, here's the thing. I mean, Paige Van Zandt's on the card. I'll watch it.
Actually, she just got pulled off the card for a back injury.
So what's left on this? Fabricio Verdum versus Derek Lewis.
Lewis. Yep.
That's the bulk of your card. Ferguson Lee is your main event, with Verdum versus Lewis as your. Poof. Yeah, that's a brutal. I'm looking at this card. That's a brutal card.
Yeah, it's definitely when you take that the fight with Paige Van Zandt off of the card, it definitely drops the value of it. I mean, obviously, the Demetrius Johnson fight is, everyone wants to see what he does with his streak and all of that, so that's cool and all, but I could have watched that on Fox, Sports. I'm not looking to pay pay-per-view for that, really. Thankfully for me, I'm very interested in the Ferguson and Lee match, so that I'd pay for that fight alone, because obviously there's huge implications, and for somebody like me who follows the sport so passionately, I like it. I like fights like that where there's a lot on the line, even though it's not a title fight. That there's a ton on the line, and these guys they seem to dislike each other. I don't know how much of that has been, WWE'd up, but it seems that they don't like each other. So
I always like the bad blood on that whole thing. Last but not least, in MMA news, the Count, Michael Bisping. Is he still the Count?
He's been. I guess so. Can you get demoted from Count status? What would that make you, an Earl? I'm not too hip on the royalty.
So it's going to be Daniel Cormier, Michael. Now they're talking Michael Bisping, Daniel Cormier.
Yeah,
Is Dana just trying to pull something out of his ass to make these cards look decent? Here's my question, I guess. Has the UFC oversaturated itself? Is it too many shows?
Yep, 100%. I've been saying this for a very long time. It's great that they got the contract with Fox. That's awesome to bring it mainstream. But they should have really done one free card a month and one pay-per-view a month. We didn't need all these other little. It takes the luster away from some of it. It's not as exciting as it used to be. You used to sit around all month after a fight, and you'd sit in there and be able to talk to your friends, get fired up about the card next month. Now there's hardly time in between each card to even figure out who's on these cards half the time. So I really wish that they would go back to just having a few cards a month and not having just like you were saying, the oversaturation is it's a little much. And honestly, it really takes away from the quality of the matches on the card.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move over to your favorite sport, the NHL, before we get into this week's betting. All right, so your team is full at it now. All right, we got We got the issues worked out with the sound. I keep following it. Kevin Aioli is so into the NHL. He is, for those of you who care about the Golden Knights, follow Kevin Aioli on Yahoo.